Good to have you. As the government resumes a second term in Nigeria, analysts are closely watching for progress in the economy and business environment. Central Bank Governor last week also unveiled plans to support the economy to achieve a double-digit annual GDP growth by 5 years. With us to consider the issues on Arise Global Business Report is Mr. Kunle Elebute, Senior Partner KPMG in Nigeria and Chairman KPMG Africa. KPMG recently published insights of leading the chief executive officers on the outlook for the Nigerian economy in 2019. You're welcome to Arise Global Business Report. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's take a look at this title, the KPMG Nigeria CEO Outlook Report. Agile or irrelevant. Why did you title it? What was the motivation for that?
Well, the key reason is that globally and also locally, we are finding that businesses are being disrupted, at a much faster pace than used to happen, many years ago.
Indeed.
And so the ability to pivot quickly and adapt to disruption has become a major strategic imperative for CEOs and their organizations to compete in today's economy. You have to be able to, be resilient, to be able to respond to disruption. And people think that Africa hasn't seen disruption. That's not correct. Take, for example, in East Africa, M-Pesa. M-Pesa today is the largest mobile banking platform, linked to Safaricom.
Indeed.
And it's highly innovative. It's one of its kind, and totally disrupted the banking system.
And it also had a very modest beginning, if it were.
Absolutely, 100%. So disruption is here to stay, not just in the first world, but even in the developing countries, because we can leapfrog technologies.
Okay.
As you know, in Nigeria, for example, very few people had telephone lines before the advent of mobile telephony.
Indeed.
Maximum 400,000 lines. Today we have well over 100 million people using mobile phones. So you can see we've leapfrogged, the entire telephony system into mobile technology. And that mobile technology now is not just about voice any longer.
All right.
It's big on data. And there's so much you can do with a mobile phone today. And that's the future of the way people will live, with the way consumers will live. It's basically the handheld device is going to define how consumers buy, how consumers not just communicate, how they visualize products, how they interact with media, for example, and so many other different things. How you check on news, how you know what's going on, and the social media within that context also has another place to play when it comes to disruption.
Indeed, and to a large extent, the population and of course technology has a role to play here, as it were.
Also, look at the age demography. The future of this economy for any business is in the 18 to 35-year-olds.
All right.
So if you run a business, whether it's banking or manufacturing or services or whatever it may be, the customer base upon which you're going to develop your growth is that age bracket.
Okay.
And the way they buy, the way they spend, is very different from the way you and I have been used to buying and spending. Okay. So if you don't disrupt your business so that you can really be relevant to that age group, that age group will disrupt you.
Indeed.
So either way, you got to be relevant. Okay. And the brands that are relevant in the next 5 to 10 years are brands that we haven't even seen. So a new brand may come out tomorrow and become the most popular brand in 5 years' time. So if you think you have a brand that's 40 or 100 years old, it doesn't mean that brand will be around in the next 5 or 10 years. So it's a fast-paced moving, economy, fast-paced moving society, as the case may be, and therefore the do's and don'ts of business that we were taught in business school are no longer relevant to exactly where. So the main reason for the publication was to actually interview 50 CEOs in Nigeria about how they are dealing with disruption and resilience and how the organizations are prepared for these major challenges.
Very good. And I guess to a large extent, the innovation and the uniqueness has to be some of the main issue here, as it were.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, how do you strike the right balance between the optimism and stark realities facing the Nigerian economy so far?
Well, if you want to put it in terms of economics, optimism and stark realities can be put in two different time buckets. Yeah. Optimism is more medium term to long term. Stark reality is today. So you're saying to yourself today that because today you cannot, the economy is challenged because we're not seeing growth, because we're not seeing, poverty reducing or employment increasing. You then say to yourself, I'm going to leave town. I'm going to go to Canada or somewhere else, or I'm going to pack up my bag. But if you then look at the various, indices around demography, for example,
Yeah.
and the things that we need to do to grow the economy.
Yeah.
And that if you fine-tune a few key policies tomorrow, okay, this economy can go on a totally different tangent. And that tangent will be a much faster growth than you have in the developed world, for example. And therefore, the optimism is around the opportunity that exists for the country to be able to drive growth much faster.
Yeah.
And because you have a fairly large market domestically and in the sub-region, that's where the optimism comes from. You know, and you've got to take a cue from investors.
Yeah.
Some investors who invest for the long term, you know, are here to stay. They're not going to pack up just because of stark realities today. So you will manage your business within stark realities today, knowing that once you come out of stark realities, optimism then kicks in. Yeah. And then you drive the growth thereafter.
Yeah. And based on what you just said, sometimes you can't help but wonder, when you talk about indices and you know, all these financial policies, the IMF will bring its own, to the World Bank, and even CBN every now and then the MBS as well. Are they, you know, the correlation between the stark reality or whatever is being touted as these figures, you know, is it a reflection of the true state of things on ground?
So the biggest challenge we have in a growing economy like ours is something called suppressed demand.
Okay.
Suppressed demand, there's no research and there's no analysis that can give you suppressed demand. Again, let's use mobile telephony as an example.
Yeah.
When we did the auction and all the telephone companies got their license, they probably didn't estimate that they'll do more than 500,000 lines. All right. Because that's what they saw on ground. Okay. But as soon as, you know, the systems, you know, came into being, and instead of initially with very high prices, and over time the prices began to go south, the pent-up demand for telephony suddenly kicked in. And once the mobile company saw that pent-up demand, what did they do? Price war started happening. They started, you know, hitting the waves with advertisement and commercials, and trying to bring in much more customers in their net. Okay. Initially with voice and then with data. So suppressed demand exists, whether it's in power sector, for example, whether it's in the food sector, whether it's in the services sector. It's only if you can give products that can be priced accordingly with the market segment you're looking to get into. That's when you can actually unleash the suppressed demand. Okay. So today, for example, in the BI industry, you got some new brands that are making waves. Those brands didn't exist 10 years ago. You know, beyond the traditional Star, Gold, and so on and so forth, you have, you know, other brands, for example, that have come to the marketplace that suddenly begin to disrupt the market. Same goes for the food industry. You know, the advent of the whole pasta industry, for example. You know, and the volume of pasta that Nigerians consume. Indeed. So 25, 30 years ago, wasn't there. It's true. You know, so the industry, all these indices may not always be in the textbook. Okay. You know, you have to be close to the market, understand the nuances of the customer you're trying to get at, and then, you know, hopefully unleash surprise demand.
Very good. Now, what are the common elements in what CEOs are saying in terms of their outlook for the Nigerian economy in 2019, do you think?
Well, in the survey, 76% of the CEOs that we surveyed are optimistic about growth in the economy and our growth in their sectors. However, you know, they want us you know, optimistic about growth in their business. So what that tells us is that, you know, that yes, they are optimistic that the economy will grow, but, you know, unless they disrupt the organizations in preparedness for that growth, they may get disrupted because there could be new players that come into the market or new products that come to the market that therefore it sort of impedes on their ability to grow their own top line. Okay, so they are optimistic that the economy will grow, and by so doing, their sectors will grow. But what they need to do to ensure that the businesses grow cannot be business as usual.
Okay, new ideas, new innovation.
Absolutely. So, new ideas, new innovation, but they also have to have a digitally prepared organization. Okay. You've got to have people in the organization that can innovate and can understand what innovation does to their business. And the biggest challenge, therefore, is people, talent. Having the right talent pool that can sit around the table, innovate with ideas, test the innovation. Some will fail, some will succeed, and then roll out what the customer wants.
So definitely there's a bit of a shortfall in that aspect of having the right talent, as it were, you think, in Nigeria?
It is a big challenge, yes, definitely, but it doesn't mean that you cannot be overcome. All right. One of the ways to overcome, therefore, is that, you know, when you take students out of university and they are fresh out of university and they have ideas, but you then need to, you know, bring them in a structured manner train them, and then hopefully they'll unleash the talent they have. So if you take, for example, an industry like the music industry, for example, music industry in Nigeria has really gone, blockbuster. Because the way and manner in which they couple the music, the way in which they write the beats, the words, and so on and so forth, has changed entirely. The kind of music that they put out to the listening public. Same thing with Nollywood, for example. So you've got to have young people who are ready to learn, create an avenue for them to be able to learn, and then give them the tools to be able to innovate.
So there has to be a lot of dynamism, as it were. All right, Mr. Elebute, just before we go to the next question, I would like us to go on a short break, but we will be right back after this. It's good to have you back on Global Business Report, and I've still got with me in the studio Kunle Elebute, Senior Partner, KPMG in Nigeria, and of course Chairman, KPMG in Africa, and we'll be talking about some stories regarding Africa, as it were. Now, let's look at some specific here. Some analysts have recently pointed to what they call regulatory tyranny, and how regulators in Nigeria are handling major operators like MTN and more recently Oando. So what do you make of that development?
Let's first of all understand what the role of the regulator is.
All right.
Our understanding, especially when you take examples of how regulators operate globally, one is compliance. There are rules of the game for that sector. Regulators want to be sure there's compliance. But regulators also have moved from just compliance to saying regulators also help to define where the sector should go, how it should grow, how it should benefit the society and the larger economy. And also, it should also define the rules of the game in the sector. So regulators must start from what's the vision for the sector. And I think the best example I could give is when Charles Olulo became CBN governor. And maybe a few days later, called a meeting of banks to Abuja and read a 13-point agenda. Clearly thought that agenda for how he saw the industry should progress, including recapitalization and investment in risk management and so on and so forth, and talent.
That's true.
And he didn't follow that roadmap. So if a regulator is following that roadmap and is carrying along the sector, now in that context, if you have any player in that context who's not complying with the way you want the sector to play out with, then you can take action.
All right.
But if you're doing what we're currently going through without a clear-cut direction for that sector by the regulator and the vision for the sector by the regulator, the perception or the reaction by the market participants that this is like what you described was tyranny, or what you are putting in place are putting disincentives for either the current incumbents to continue to invest and expand, or new players to come in. So I think, my view is that the role of regulators has changed fundamentally. And it's not just about, compliance and hitting the hammer on the market participant, but more important to say, what kind of sector would we like? Do we need to grow our economy, and where do we want to see the sector in 5 or 10 years' time?
All right.
So, both ways. Even if you have market participants that are not complying with any rules, I believe also that you have regulators today who are probably not properly skilled to actually play the role of regulator for the future. So it's a balance as a regulator. It's not just about, hitting the nail on the head and trying to, beat it. No, it's also about what is best for the economy, what's best for the consumer, how can we expand the sector, how can we attract more investment in the sector, how can we create employment in the sector. And once you define the rules of the game, for example, I think one of the senior governors came and said corporate governance was key for the sector. And said if you have been a CEO for more than X number of years, you step down. And 2 or 3 CEOs who have been there for too long, step down. And they handed over to the next line in control. And they moved on. And they said, even if you step down, you cannot be on the board for another 3 years. They left the board, the bank came back after 3 years. So there's orderliness in the sector. You get a point. And it becomes very professional in the way you manage sector. Definition of who can become a director, for example, how many years you can be, what roles, who's independent, things like conflict of interest. Once you define all those rules of the game, and you encourage market participants to comply with those rules of the game, yes, you'll find 1 or 2 guys who may not comply. And then you sit down with them and say, why aren't you complying? And then try and make them comply. And if they refuse to comply, then you take regulatory action.
Indeed.
So what we need more is more orderliness and predictability of the actions of regulators, because it's key for investors.
All right.
And it's also key for market participants.
Well, there has to be a level of flexibility on the part of regulators themselves.
Deep understanding as regulators, well, you have to understand the sector very deeply. In fact, to regulate a market participant, you have an obligation to know the sector better than the market participant.
Okay.
You got a point. So you can't wait for the market participant to come to you and tell you this is how I want to run the sector. No, it should be the other way around.
All right.
So you need to have deep knowledge and deep skills for you to say this is the outcome I'm looking for the sector. I'm not sure we're there yet in many sectors in Nigeria. Some have gone far,
okay.
Some are got to a point and they started to recede. So again, the talent and the capacity of the individuals you put in as regulators is key.
Very good. Now let's look at other issues. One area of improvement in Nigeria for the government is radically reducing cost of governance. I know you have had some opportunities to see some of the numbers, as it were. Where are the main opportunities here, you think?
You know, I think my view is that the government used to apply the use of technology a lot more.
All right.
In the way they deliver services to the general public.
Okay.
You know, in some countries now with e-governance systems and jurisdictions, you know, just sitting at home, for example, you know, it's almost like, you know, you want to pay for your DSTV you know, subscription. You can sit from your home and you can pay for the service.
Indeed.
You get a point. So, if you don't pay for the service goes off. So there are many services that we are offered, you know, to the general public. Why must we go to a ministry? Why must we go to a public office when we can do so? You know, if it's a driving license or if it's a passport, X, Y, Z. You know, so we need to use technology a lot more. Now, using technology a lot more doesn't mean that it will lead to unemployment. Okay. All it means that those people who are in government service who can raise their skills and be able to be relevant with use of technology will be relevant. And if you can't raise your skills and understand how to use technology, then of course you have a job, in effect. So technology drives efficiency so significantly. I mean, you know, even in my own working place or working career, you know, 20, 25 years ago, 2 or 3 managers had a secretary. Today, you know, even if you give one secretary to 15 managers, secretary is still not busy because you can do everything yourself using technology. So technology is a critical component of any organization today and going forward. Okay. And I must say, I don't think the Nigerian government, you know, the Nigerian government or whether federal or subnational has invested in the right way with technology. So there's a big opportunity there for, and that will save lots of wastage, as far as I'm concerned. Secondly, also, we have too many government agencies. Okay. We have too many government departments. Some of them are even doing streamline that. Some of them are even doing almost the same thing. Some of them are overlapping. You know, we need to streamline the government agencies. We need to, you know, ensure that they are focused on the right thing for the consumer as well as for the market participants in those sectors. Okay. And you know, of course, you know, when the whole issue about, you know, any organization is like you have to also continuously bring in younger people. Okay. You know, as the older ones get more senior, sometimes, you know, you can wait to retirement, but in some organizations, some environments, you can get a nice package for you to exit, and then you create room for the younger ones. So bringing younger ones in, you're bringing new ideas. You can point so, and you're streamlining the way you actually provide services. So for me, these are the fundamentals. You know, rather than going through, you know, let's reduce cost, let's reduce that cost. But if you don't change behavior, you're likely to get the cost reduction you're looking for. Yeah, so a bit of stagnation there, as it were. All right, another area Nigeria lags behind is in the tax collection to GDP ratio. What can be done to bring Nigeria up to the peer average on this? I think the biggest issue, of course, you have is that, you know, since the economy has slowed down, first of all, the recession in the last few years and then the slow growth. When the economy grows very slowly, the ability for companies to pay taxes reduces. When companies make losses, no taxes to pay. We make lower profits, less taxes to pay. So as a function of the way the macro environment operates. But I think also you have a large part of the economy that's informal. Until you make it in their interest to cross to the formal sector, they won't pay the right taxes. And then finally, for me, you know, tax is about trust. If I pay my taxes to the tax collector, I need to be sure that in return, I get services. There are some countries, for example, in Europe, where the tax rate is over 90%. But that's because government does everything, including education, including, you know, mass transit systems, a whole lot. You know, and you get electricity, you get power, the whole lot. Indeed. You know, but today we are challenged by even getting services from local government or from state governments. So again, that element of trust has to be at the front and center of how we can increase tax collection. Indeed. And it puts the onus on political leaders, of course, to do the right things with tax revenues, so that the general public believes them and says, oh, I can see what my tax naira is being used for. I'm willing to pay the right taxes.
Yeah, and they're watching. They've been lamenting for some time on that for a long time now. Now, the CBN says they want to support growth. Some have said rates can no more go down appreciably because of inflation drivers. So what else can the CBN do here?
Well, I think we have to understand what the CBN's role is. The CBN is largely to drive monetary policy and also manage the currency. So the CBN on its own cannot be responsible for driving growth. You got a point. Interest rates set by CBN are a function of a whole lot of parameters in the economy.
Yep.
So unless you have fiscal policy also working in tandem with the right kind of to drive growth in the economy, monetary policy will then respond to that fiscal policy in a way to supplement the fiscal policy to ensure that the goals of driving economic growth and creating employment are being attained.
Indeed.
Okay, so when you have a growing economy, when your economy that is producing mass housing, for example, and has electricity being generated, and you have human capital being developed, for example, then it's very likely that with such fiscal policy and government incentives to drive growth of the economy, the central bank can moderate as and when required. If inflation is going up, they moderate. If they want it to come down, they can moderate. You get a point. But without the right fiscal policy environment, monetary policy is challenged.
All right.
And that's what we have to do. So between defining the currency on the one hand, based on the reserves that we have, and linked to oil prices, and also the issues around, lack of funding for the country, and increased government borrowing on the fiscal side.
Okay.
As the government continues to borrow much more on the fiscal side, then interest rates are challenged, and monetary policy has to be fine-tuned because of that challenge of fiscal policy imbalance. Okay. So I think in the context, central bank is doing probably the best they can, but until you have the right fiscal policy environment to drive economic growth and support private sector investment in particular, I'm not sure there's much more that central bank can do. Sometimes people think that the central bank is even doing a lot more than their role today, and probably doing things which should be done by on the fiscal side, But we haven't seen the right combination of policies that can drive our growth rate to 6, 7, 8%.
All right. Well, very good. Many thanks for your enlightenment on those key issues. Mr. Kunle Elebute, Senior Partner, KPMG in Nigeria, Chairman, also KPMG of Africa. It's been a pleasure having you on Global Business Report. Hope to see you again.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.